As a horror fan, what movies define you? That's right, today on this epic episode, I'm going to be talking about my specific favorite horror movie from every single year of my life. From the year I was born all the way till 2024. We got some doozies, some masterpieces, some cult classics, and one that you're going to be like, yo, Dylan, you have bad taste. But let's talk about them today. What up, y'all? Welcome back to Phantom of the Indie Review. I am your host, Dill. I'm your host, Dylan. We are on the journey of 4,000 subscribers by Christmas, that's right. If you love House of a Thousand Corpses, Tales from the Crypt, 90s horror, 80s horror, yo mama, please subscribe. And if any of that sounds fun to you, and if you want to sit down and have a good old blast, because I'm a pleasure to be around, come hang out and give me a subby. I feel like this is going to be a very fun episode, one I'm very excited about. I just thought it would be cool to just talk about every single horror movie of every year of my life. Growing up as a kid, you see some movies that are critically panned and you don't know the difference. They still creep you out because they're fun. And then other times you see ones that over the years take a while to grow. I have a few on this list that I didn't quite like, and then now as a grown-up I'm like, yeah, you know what, that actually might be one of my favorite movies of all time. But let's just get into the list right away and start in 1994, the year I was born. On a cold February night, a woman created a monster. We're talking about Brain Scan. That is right, Edward Furlong, such a great childhood actor. Kind of went off the rails a little bit as an adult, but Brain Scan is a very phenomenal, I feel like, great movie to start off this list because it is very indie, very underrated, very hidden. It's about this kid who is fascinated and intrigued by horror movies, video games, typical around the middle 90s stuff, and he buys a CD-ROM that essentially POV game where you are the murderer. You play as the killer's point of view, and let's just say that this is a very sci-fi horror-esque movie. So as he plays this game, he wakes up, and let's just say that the sleepy town he lives in is inhabited by a killer that is eerily similar to the gameplay he is playing. Yeah, very virtual reality induced. The main antagonist, the trickster, is up there as an icon, in my opinion, an underrated icon. Such a fun character. This movie's comedy, it's horror. It's just well-paced and has a good story to unfold. 1995, we're going to get gritty with it. We're going to be talking about Rusty Cundiff's Tales from the... No, not Crypt. I did too much of that. Tales from the Hood. This movie, as a child, really played with me. It tormented me. It picked me apart from the introduction story of the cop who's brutally killed and comes back to get his revenge throughout and all the stories in between, from the Boogeyman one and even Little Creepy Dolls, that now looking back is obviously an homage to Trilogy of Terror. This one's just fun, and it is socially rooted in American culture. Rusty Cundiff, a African American, had a lot to say in this story piece. It is a great narrative with horror themes behind it. It's just so fun. The thematic story that ties it all together is the three gangsters that go to the mortuary, all to find out a very unsettling outcome. It's just a fun movie. It's very eerie. I love it. 1996 is From Dusk Till Dawn. And I say this all the time. I don't know if I've said it on YouTube, but this is such a genius concept. And I remember asking my father-in-law about it one time. I was like, yo, when you first saw From Dusk Till Dawn, was it advertised as a vampire movie? And he was like, no, dude. Like, when that movie first came out, nobody knew it was a vampire movie until that halfway mark. And imagine just having the luxury of seeing that. We don't get to see that in horror movies often, that a movie is said to be something and then halfway through flips on its head. I feel like that's really cool. As George Clooney, Quentin Tarantino, Salma Hayek, Harvey Keitel, it's star-studded. It's such an eerie movie. It has such a certain vibe to it, this Mexican dreariness to it. Vampires, you're gonna love vampires. It's comedic as hell, gruesome, amazing practical effects from Tom Savini and Greg Nicotero. It's just so good. 1997, I'm gonna take a little walk away from horror for just a sec. Hear me out. Don't get mad. I know there's a lot of horror that came out in 1997. Like the movie that could have been iconic, Wishmaster. I Know What You Did Last Summer. One of, what's his name? One of Kevin Williamson's masterpieces. I have another movie on this list ahead of that. And even Campfire Tales. Did I say that already? And Jack Frost, the new review I just dropped. Check it out if you want a frightfully fun review. No more plugs. What movie am I talking about? But yeah, oh yeah, Disney's Under Wraps. I know. I mean, that movie scared me as a kid, from the introduction of the kids at the theater, and then they have that the mystery and lore of them thinking, a lot of times in 80s, 90s movies, they think their neighbor is far-fetched and deranged when they're just a humbuggy old man, and there is stories and speculation about the old house, and they unravel an ancient mummy, and it's just so nostalgic. It's up there with Hocus Pocus in that vibe, and I really wish Disney Plus would put it on, but no, they had to make a remake, which is fine. Remakes are okay. But yeah, Under Wraps, such a fun Halloween aesthetic movie, reminds you of the 90s, reminds you of childhood, and it creeped me out. 1998, two of the greatest lines of all time. The first one is, "I'm not an alien, I'm discontent. Stan, you're the man." And then another one that's not really iconic, it's that scene where Elijah Wood is like inside of the principal's office and they see the dummy in the closet and he goes, "That wasn't there when they got there. They put that there." The Faculty. I told my niece it was about robotic piranhas, and am I wrong? No, such a fascinating rendition on body snatchers, the whole town being taken over by aliens, and it starts with the faculty, with the teachers, and they implement their seeds and roots into the town. And a lot of times the 90s is known for remakes and rehashes and reinventing horror movies, but this one, Robert Rodriguez, did it right. And now that I think about it, I have 2 Robert Rodriguez movies on this list, From Dusk Till Dawn and The Faculty. So is he a GOAT? Yes. 1999, and I'm starting to realize there's a theme of mostly horror comedies, is Idle Hands. Yes, Devon Sawa, horror icon in the making. We know and love him for Final Destination, the new Chucky show. But Idle Hands is just such a fun movie, and it's so creepy. It plays with an idea, especially for the time, a universal theme of, Idle Hands is the devil's playground or whatever, and possession and all that stuff, but it's done in a fun, unique way. I feel like there's never been a movie really like it. It has that 90s twang to it, a lot of cheap thrills, good storyline, comedic as hell. Seth Green's in there, and it's just a fun movie, and it's just one of those movies that when you watch it reminds you of a certain time in your life. It's just so fun and good. The story's there, the acting is decent as well. Just a great movie. 2000, a movie that actually creeped me out to this day is Hellraiser Inferno. We got Craig Schaefer, who plays a pessimistic detective who finds the Lament configuration, and this is one of the few movies I remember as a childhood. There are many from before the year I was born that I can't quite mention because that doesn't fit the curriculum of this video, but Hellraiser Inferno scared me to this day. Like, I have not rewatched it, and I want to, but I'm always like scared. The inner child in me is like, dude, don't watch that movie. And I'm sure it's not as bad as I remember, but from the dreary cinematography to like the helpless vibe, overall story just creeps me out. If you've been on this channel for a while, you'll know my number 2 favorite horror movie of all time has to come in for 2001 is Jeepers Creepers. I don't care what anyone says about this movie. I think it's fascinating from the entire introduction scene of Derry and Trish getting harassed by the creeper, from them unfolding and discovering the lore of the creeper. I feel like this is it's a well-paced monster movie that first disguises itself as a cat and mouse serial killer movie until you slowly get those reveals, and I feel like the creator of the movie does a great job at revealing everything into the final climax with the jaw-dropping scene. 2002, a very underrated, iconic one. Rest in peace, Robin Williams, one of the greatest comedian actors of all time, but this one is not funny. 1 Hour Photo. Cy Parrish runs a 1-hour photo developing lab in a small mall. He's a perfectionist about his work and generous to his regular customers, including a typical family beheaded by Will Yorkin. And over the years, he watches his family grow. Through their photographs, he's kind of a quiet guy and, takes a liking to this family. But one day, he gets photographic evidence of Yorkin being unfaithful, and let's just say he kind of goes off the rails. All I can say is that this movie is a masterclass in psychological terror, in thriller, in mystery. Robin Williams has one hell of a performance that you wouldn't expect. Definitely, out of a lot of the movies on this list, check this one out if you haven't seen it. 2003, though it was initially made in like 1998, but didn't get distributed from Lionsgate until 2003. I'm a nerd, I know. You guys know the answer to this. And that's the thing that sucks, is 2003 and 2004 and 2005, those 3 years have some of my favorite horror movies of all time. That was the heyday, the peak of horror for me at a young age. But number 2003 has to be House of a Thousand Corpses. I have 10 videos on my page about it. I'm not going to go into more detail about that, other than the fact that, I really like those like transition scenes that they have with like the Sasquatch, the skunk ape, and Dr. Satan. Those are cool. 2004, another very underrated one. A little fun fact: around this time, Topher Grace and Ashton Kutcher were having a little beef on the set of that '70s show. Topher Grace went on to do, I think, like Win a Date with Chad Hamilton or some other low-budget comedy. Ashton Kutcher, who was more of the funny guy, Topher always had beef with him. He's like, dude, I'm a better actor than you. But then Ashton Kutcher drops The Butterfly Effect. Have you seen this movie? I know this movie traumatized a lot of us when we were kids. This thriller sci-fi movie just has that special eeriness to it. I remember even one time my father-in-law was like, said he didn't like watching this movie because it like icked him out, and I get that. Like, this is one of those movies that you remember just being so provocative and riveting. It freaks you out, and it just has a weird vibe to it, but it's really good. Evan is pretty much inflicted with headaches, and let's just say, I'm not going to get into any spoilers because this one's just too good to watch, but it's very gritty. There's a lot of realistic brutality in this movie. Not like gore, but like storyline trauma a lot, and it's so good. Watch this. You remember when I said I was going to mention Kevin Williamson in here? No, I'm not talking about Scream. I know you did last summer. I'm talking about a very specific one from 2005. It is called Venom, starring one of my favorite teen heartthrobs. What's his name? Jonathan Jackson. This one is a slasher set in the Louisiana Bayou, and the killer is pretty much the spirit of a man who died, who can like use snakes and shit. It has that Kevin Williamson isms to them from like Scream, and I know you did last summer, and all of his iconic slashers, but it's just supernatural, and I just feel like it's very riveting and very special and very, very different. I lied real quick. Yeah, I'm gonna leave The Butterfly Effect in there, but I forgot my favorite horror movie from 2004 is Riding the Bullet, the Stephen King adaptation made by Mick Garris, also starring Jonathan Jackson. I'm not a simp for Jonathan, I just like his acting, and this is one of my favorite movies of all time. How did I not know? I reviewed this movie a lot. I talk about this movie a lot to myself. I'm just gonna put Butterfly, the only tie on this list, Butterfly Effect with Riding the Bullet, but Riding the Bullet's gonna be ahead. I have a review on Riding the Bullet. Maybe I'll redo it because it's old, but it's a coming of age story. It is very haunting, very dreadful. Shows like Stephen King does it best, the memories of adolescence and the tragedies of being an adult, and it kind of hallucinates them together and makes it very provocative. All right, I didn't mean to backspace. 2006. I want to review this movie so bad, so let me know if you want. We all know Darkness Falls, but have you ever seen the movie The Tooth Fairy? It has such a sci-fi channel vibe to it. It's about a tooth fairy, you know, who would have thunk? Not the Dwayne Johnson one. I've made that joke before. That's the thing when you talk about your favorite horror movies, you make the same jokes a lot. Anyhow, The Tooth Fairy, let's just say this dude buys a bed and breakfast, and it is inhabited by the lore and legend of the Tooth Fairy and all the children that died around it. It's just a fun movie to me. One of the ones that just I'm gonna say this a lot, creeped me out as a child. And to this day when I watch it, I get a thrill from it. 2007, one of the better one of the better sequels in my opinion, Wrong Turn 2, Dead End, is set in a post-apocalyptic TV show like Survivor, one of those, you know, game shows where people go in the woods and try to survive, but this is where we get more of the lore and backstory of the Odette family, some brutal kills to it. Even though it's way cheaper looking than the first Wrong Turn movie, this one's fun, has some great cinematography. It's just a fun vibe. 2008, I'm going to review this one soon, so I might not get into too much detail. It's called Abusement. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but it kind of has that urban legend vibe to it, where it just pieces together little integral stories. It's not an anthology, it all ties together, but it's just good. It's about the psychopath who fascinated over these young girls when he was a kid and then grew up to get his revenge on them. Very similar to Milo, that review I did back then. Damn, I'm plugging my entire channel. I should be a spokesperson for my channel. But it's called Abusement, from the creepy clown scene to, I think his name's Tad. Hey Siri, who plays Stifler in Bandcamp? Tad Helgenbrink. Yeah, dude, he's great. I mean, I loved him in that movie, and it's called Amusement. Check it out. 2009, I remember watching this movie around 2010, 2011 when I was like turning like, I don't know, fucking a teenager. And it's such a great remake. My Bloody Valentine, the dude from Supernatural, it's just such a good and developing story. You start to question the motives of many characters. You don't know who to believe. You're like, is that guy really the bad guy, or is this guy really the bad guy? It's one of those unique slashers, the original one and the remake too. They're both underrated, and it's just very scary, a cool concept about a minor that dies and comes back to like haunt people, and it might be a serial killer copycatting him, or it might be his ghost. That's cool as dick. 2010 is Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. Such a funny movie. I love Tyler Levine. I love Alan Rudnick, whatever his name is. That Steve the Pirate, Resident Alien. He's a great actor. He should be in a lot more. But this movie's funny. I love the perspective of the teenagers camping in the woods, and every time they see Tucker and Dale, they like show it as them being like hillbillies, cannibals, and like horror movie tropes, like when they talk to him, like that guy was creepy, but then we get the spin of Tucker and Dale, and it's so funny, and it just ties together into a great slasher movie with some brutal kills and some fun scenes. 2011, and I really genuinely disliked this movie when it first came out. I remember buying it on DVD, watching it with my cousin, and being like, that movie stank. But then after thinking more about it, The Cabin in the Woods, dude, that movie is so insane. Yes, it's very funny, it's very quirky, and I really thought it was dumb, only because you gotta understand, back in that time when the trailer came out, they like advertised it to be a slasher. So here I am being a hypocrite, being like, I wish a movie came out like From Dusk Till Dawn that advertised one thing and then fucking showed another, and when I literally had that and I hated it. So what is wrong with me? Am I a prick? But yeah, Cabin in the Woods, from the cracking the tropes of all these horror movies to the final reveal of how they do it, is just so fucking sick. 2012, Daniel Radcliffe's Harry Potter and the Woman in Black. No, The Woman in Black though. That one's a good movie. It's just a good, simple, eerie one. Has a gothic aesthetic to it. Very haunting, very rainy, dark, and mysterious. The woman in Black lore is scary, and I just remember it creeped me out as a kid. It's just a simple one. 2013, one of my personal favorites from Andreas Muschietti, who did It Chapter 1 and 2, a couple other things. Mama. I mean, I love the cinematography, the aesthetic, the soundtrack, the music, the mystical ambiance about it, but it's set like a real world haunting story, even though it has a supernatural unfolding. I love movies that do that. They have a realism to them, even though they're supernatural. Like I said many times about Andreas Muschietti, I'm not a huge fan of the CGI, but it's a creepy movie. It's very disturbing, and it has my boy Jaime Lannister from Game of Thrones. Lannister always pays their debts. 2014, we're gonna go with Clown, which started off, I'm pretty sure, as a short film, but then Eli Roth was like, this movie's so great, I'm gonna produce it and make a longer version. And Clown is a very creepy movie, especially if you're scared of clowns. I'm not. But this dude is hired to play the clown at his son's Jack's birthday, and he finds this old ancient clown suit and puts it on and kind of transforms him into this clown, kind of like the Haunted Mask vibe. And yeah, the premise is cliche, but they have like this whole backstory and lore of what a clown is. It's more dark and disturbing. Very German, maybe. There's a brutal kill in there. There's some suspense. There's a lot of tension with the kids. Like every time he's around kids, you're like, don't kill the kids. The reveal of what the clown looks like at the end is actually very well. It's just a very, this is another one. If you haven't seen this movie, definitely check it out. It's very creepy, very haunting, very fun. 2015, M. Night Shyamalan gets a lot of slack. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of his movies other than Signs, but The Visit is actually one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Even though it's found footage, it's very interesting. The kids are very relatable. They have that comic relief. There's this one kid who's like germophobic, and I really relate to that because I used to be very bad when I was a kid. And it's just creepy, like going to stay at your grandparents' house and they're just acting odd. Like one scene of her chasing the kids under the house, like crawling vigorously fast, and then trying to put them in the oven, and they're just blaming it on old age and dementia. That's really eerie and real until the plot twist that comes in is actually quite shocking. 2016, probably one of my favorite newer horror movies of all time, The Autopsy of Jane Doe, a claustrophobic, small setting starring, I believe his name is Brian Cox and Emile Hirsch, about a son and father duo who are mortician, autopsiers, people that look at dead bodies, and they get caught in their morgue during a snowstorm, and let's just say supernatural stuff occurs. This one is actually freaky. It's just well made. 2017, I gotta give it its flowers. It Chapter 1. I mean, I just made a video talking about my love for both the It miniseries and the chapters, but It Chapter 1, it just has great actors. It tells the story of the first part about the kids way more in depth. The 90s miniseries still is great, but this one is very real. It's very brutal. They make Pennywise more scary, and I feel like that's the it factor for me. No pun intended. 2018 is a little hidden gem called Bloodfest. It's about this dude who's really trying to go to a festival called Bloodfest, and his dad's like, no, you're not gonna go. The kid witnessed like his mom get brutally murdered when he was a child, and this one's just fun. It's very funny, being all the pieces of the Bloodfest, from like the clown part to the zombie part to the vampire part. It's like all these little sections of the amusement park is really cool. Has an interesting story. Just a good time. I like to watch this one a lot. 2019, another very underrated one, starring Kyle Gallner, the Scream King, in my opinion, behind Justin Long. You know and love him from many movies. The Cleansing Hour. This one is really awesome. It's like these dudes that are they fake possessions and like film it, and then one time they do an episode, and let's just say the devil really possesses someone very important to them. And this one's very brutal. It makes them question their mortality, their sanity, their morality as well. And it's so well acted. It's so fast paced. It's so gritty, and it's so good. 2020, this one caught me off guard. I think it's the dude from Stranger Things. I'm not sure, but it's called Spree. Another kind of like found footagey movie. This one's very distinct. One of those movies you can watch once or twice and be over it, but I won't get into much detail. But this dude is desperate for an online following. I kind of relate to that. He figures out a deadly plan to go viral, and it's just so wicked and fun and brutal. 2021, a nice, great cinematic movie. A lot of people disregarded after it came out. It was very hyped. Brought to us by Scott Cooper, who brought me one of my favorite favorite non-horror movies of all time, Out of the Furnace. Fucking love that movie. Antlers. It's about a small town in Oregon where a teacher and her brother, the local sheriff, discover a young student is harboring a dangerous secret that could have frightening consequences. And it's pretty much about the Algonquin demon we know and love as the Wendigo. And if you don't love Wendigo lore and supernatural vibes and pristine filmmaking that has high quality and a high budget, don't at me then. You'll like this one though. 2022, I remember seeing this movie and it really took me by surprise. Not as much as it did other people, because I've always loved Ty West, from The Innkeepers to the House of the Devil. The movie X, Mia Goth's magnum opus pretty much. This one is so phenomenal. It introduces the character Maxine Minks. Pearl has Kid Cudi in there. Such a great slasher movie, obviously with nods and inspirations to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but what movie isn't inspired by the Texas Chainsaw Massacre if you're a slasher? Sorry, hate to say that. I don't know why I got so mad. This movie is so good, dude. The acting is good. Every twist and turn is jaw-dropping. It's so good that they made a trilogy within 3 years, and it's one of the best horror trilogies in the last 20 years. 2023 is the last voyage of the Demeter. If you love Dracula, you love vampires, but you like fresh spin on it, this one's it. They took a chapter from, I believe, Bram Stoker's Dracula, I'm not too positive, about the ship journey and the logs that everything ensued, and this has an ensemble cast. It is so good. A lot of people dogged this movie, but I found it very eerie, very riveting. I mean, the Dracula is creepy, it's more animalistic, but it's just a fun movie. And then last but not least, for 2024, believe it or not, I think I saw this movie at the beginning of the year. It's called Sting. That's like a fucking eight-legged freaks type spider movie where this dad and his family are trapped in a apartment complex during a snowstorm, and a little baby spider comes down from space, inhabits the building, and just torments the family, and it's just so fun, so creepy. It's just a fun time. As you guys can see from this list, I have a lot of horror comedies on here, or a lot of ones that are exciting and interesting, some kind of very creepy ones, but I guess my personality is defined as horror comedic. I would really love to know your guys' list down below. I know it might be a hassle to write it all out, but please, write a novel. I'll respond to it. Let's talk horror. What movie on this list is your favorite? I would love to know. Is it Antlers? I hope it is. And what's your favorite subgenre of horror? Clearly mine's horror comedy. What is yours? But thank you guys so much for watching. This one was really fun to make, very nostalgic. That's what this channel is about. It's about nostalgia and fun, and I really hope I delivered a good list. If it sucks, tell me, because I won't be that mad, I promise. But yeah, guys, please subscribe, give me a thumb, or hit that ding-a-ling button for us and telling you, hey, it's me, I'm here, and I'm gonna say it one time for the one time and two time for the O's. Give me a hell yeah for what? A hell yeah for what? A hell yeah for what? A hell yeah for horror. Alright, little buddy, time to do a review about your best episodes.
Oh, spare me, you fat little puke.
Why do you sound like that?